Don Regio Dolphins. This is our second read for our 4th through 8th graders. I am pleased to announce that we have had a unanimous vote. Thank you to the people who left me comments in the comments box. Drum roll, please. We are reading The Westing Game by Ellen Raskin. I'm very excited to be reading a murder mystery with you all. I used to love mystery. It was my favorite genre growing up. In middle school and high school, I used to read a lot of R.L. Stine books, Christopher Pike books, and even Mary Higgins Clark. I think those were my 3 favorite while I was in middle school and high school. So I hope that as we're reading this book, maybe it's going to inspire you to pull up and pick up some other mystery books that you guys can read. As promised when we spoke last time, my plan is to have us have the opportunity to do activities together or to keep you further engaged with the book. Now, don't feel pressured to do this at all. By all means, you can just follow along and enjoy the reading of the book. But if you're looking for additional activities or your parents are looking for additional activities, you can participate in some of these activities with me. So what I'm going to ask is that you get either a notebook, binder paper, or if you have a Chromebook, 6th through 8th graders, you can open up a Google Doc. What I'd like you to do is to get started, I want you to replicate what I have written here in my notebook. So title the assignment or the work that we're doing, The Westing Game. Today we're going to be reading chapters 1 and 2. There are 30 chapters, so my hope is if we can read about 2 chapters a day, that will allow us to finish in the few weeks that we have. We're always going to tackle some vocabulary, so there are 2 vocabulary words today, tenants and grapple. What I ask is that you guys actually look up the words. You can use dictionary.com. Please include the part of speech and the definition. And then when we see these words in our reading, I will try to remember to stop and talk about them in context because that will also help you with the meaning. And then today's little activity here is a little graphic organizer all about setting. The setting plays a very important role in this story. It's really important that we understand not just where this takes place, but the kind of mood and significance the location has. So here in setting, I want you to kind of off on the side write where is the story located, the time, what time of year, the time that it is, the importance of a setting such as this, and then the mood that the setting is creating. Now, when you fill this out in the graphic organizer, or if you're doing like bullets on a Google Doc, you do not need to write incomplete sentences. These are just ideas for you to kind of mull over because setting does play such a significant role. I'm going to hold this up here for a second. Feel free to pause the video if you want to continue to copy this down. The next thing, if you are an artist and you need to get some drawing in, which I hope that my Don Regio students love them some art. So if you would like, you could draw a picture of an apartment building. Try to, again, replicate this graphic organizer that I have here glued into my notebook. If you are working off of a Google Doc, then you can actually create a table. And the table could be 1, 2, 3, 4 rows and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. Now, part of the story takes place at the Sunset Towers. The Sunset Towers is an apartment building, and it is really important to know where everybody lives because in the first 3 chapters, we are going to be introduced to 16 characters. That is a lot of characters to try to keep track of. Kind of like Clue, our job is going to be to determine who did it, right? Who potentially killed Sam Westing and who is going to inherit the will. So again, you can pause this if you need to continue to look at it or copy it. We're going to identify in here who lives in each of the apartments, so the name of the families, and then next to it, the occupations of the people who live there. So what job does that family have? Okay. Now, in a mystery, there are a lot of characters involved, and that's part of the fun, is because we have to play detective. So while we're reading, we're going to be playing detective to try to figure out who potentially killed Sam Westing, as well as who we think is going to inherit the will. That is why it's going to be important for you in some way, shape, or form to try to keep track of these 16 characters. Otherwise, it could get confusing if you don't have it all mapped out. So I will try to help you with that part. Okay, without further ado, let's go ahead and start reading. Chapter 1, Sunset Towers. The sun sets in the west. Just about everyone knows that. But Sunset Towers faced east. Strange. Sunset Towers faced east and had no towers. This glittery, glassy apartment house stood alone on the Lake Michigan shore 5 stories high. 5 empty stories high. Then one day, it happened to be the 4th of July, a most uncommon-looking delivery boy rode around town slipping letters under the doors of the chosen tenants-to-be. The letters were signed Barney Northrup. The delivery boy was 62 years old, and there was no such person as Barney Northrup. Dear lucky one, here it is, the apartment you've always dreamed of, at a rent you can afford, in the newest, most luxurious building on Lake Michigan. Sunset Towers. Picture windows in every room, uniformed doorman maid service, central air conditioning, high-speed elevator, exclusive neighborhood near excellent schools, etc., etc. You have to see it to believe it, but these unbelievably elegant apartments will be shown by appointment only. So hurry, there are only a few left. Call me now at 276-7474 for this once-in-a-lifetime offer. Your servant, Barney Northrup. P.S. I'm also renting ideal space for a doctor's office in the lobby, a coffee shop with entrance from the parking lot, and a high-class restaurant on the entire top floor. 6 letters were delivered. Just 6. 6 appointments were made, and one by one, family by family, talk, Barney Northrup led the tours around and about Sunset Towers. Take a look at all that glass, one-way glass, Barney Northrup said. You can see out, nobody can see in. Looking up, the Wexlers, the first appointment of the day, were blinded by the blast of morning sun that flashed off the face of the building. See those chandeliers? Crystal, Barney Northrup said, slicking his black mustache and straightening his hand-painted tie in the lobby's mirrored wall. How about this carpeting? 3 inches thick. Gorgeous, Mrs. Wexler replied, clutching her husband's arm in her high heels as her high heels wobbled in the deep plush pile. She, too, managed an approving glance in the mirror before the elevator door opened. You're really in luck, Barney Northrup said. There's only 1 apartment left, but you'll love it. It was meant for you. He flung open the door to 3D. The Wexlers live at 3D. Now, is that breathtaking or is that breathtaking? Mrs. Wexler gasped. It was breathtaking, all right. 2 walls of the living room were floor-to-ceiling glass. Following Barney Northrup's lead, she oohed and awed her joyous way through the entire apartment. Her trailing husband was less enthusiastic. What's this, a bedroom or a closet? Jake Wexler asked, peering into the last room. It's a bedroom, of course, his wife replied. Looks like a closet. Oh, Jake, this apartment is perfect for us, just perfect, Grace Wexler argued in a whining coo. The 3rd bedroom was a trifle small, but it would do just fine for Turtle. And to think what it means having your office in the lobby, Jake. No more driving to and from work. No more mowing the lawn or shoveling the snow. Let me remind you, Barney Northrup said, the rent here is cheaper than what your old house costs in upkeep. How would he know that? Jake wondered. Grace stood before the front window where beyond the road, beyond the trees, Lake Michigan lay calm and glistening. A lake view. Just wait until those so-called friends of hers with their classy houses see this place. The furniture would have to be reupholstered. No, she'd buy new furniture, beige velvet. And she'd have stationery made, blue with a decal edge, her name and fancy address in swirling type across the top. Grace Winsler Wexler, Sunset Towers on the lake shore. Not every tenant-to-be was quite as overjoyed as Grace Winsor Wexler. Notice that we've used the word tenant. What do you think the word tenant means? We're talking about the people who are going to move into the building. Arriving in the late afternoon, Sidel Pulaski looked up and saw only the dim, warped reflections of treetops and drifting clouds in the glass face of Sunset Towers. You're really in luck, Barney Northrop said for the 6th and last time. There's only one apartment left, but you'll love it. It was meant for you. He flung open the door to a 1-bedroom apartment in the rear. Now, is that breathtaking or is that breathtaking? Not especially, Sidel Pulaski replied as she blinked into the rays of the summer sun setting behind the parking lot. She had waited all these years for a place of her own, and here it was, in an elegant building where rich people lived, but she wanted a lake view. The front apartments are taken, Barney Northrop said. Besides, the rent's too steep for a secretary's salary. Believe me, you get the same luxuries here at 1/3 of the price. So note that Sidel Pulaski is a secretary. At least the view from the side window was pleasant. Are you sure nobody can see in? Sidel Pulaski asked. Absolutely, Barney Northrop said, following her suspicious stare to the mansion on the North Cliff. That's just the old Westinghouse up there. It hasn't been lived in for 15 years. Well, I'll have to think it over. I have 20 people begging for this apartment, Barney Northrop said, lying through his buck teeth. Take it or leave it. I'll take it. Whoever, whatever else he was, Barney Northrop was a good salesman. In one day, he had rented all of Sunset Towers to the people whose names were already printed on the mailboxes in an alcove off the lobby. Isn't that interesting? They sent out only 6 letters. They were all to pre-identified people who all rented the apartment, and before they even came to check out the apartments, their names were already written on the mailboxes. Sounds like a setup. All right, so here are some important locations and names that you need to keep record of. This can go into that apartment building that you are drawing. The office is of Dr. Wexler. The lobby is Theodorakis Coffee Shop. The person living in 2C is F. Bombach. 2D, Theodorakis. 3C, S. Pulaski. 3D, Wexler. 4C, Hoo, H-O-O. 4D, J.J. Ford. And 5, Shin Hoo's Restaurant. So you may want to pause this and rewind it if you need to go back to identify all the locations of where the families live. We also know that Sidel Pulaski is a secretary and the Wexler family dad is the doctor. Who were these people? These specially selected tenants. They were mothers and fathers and children, a dressmaker, a secretary, an inventor, a doctor, a judge, and oh yes, one was a bookie, one was a burglar, one was a bomber, and one was a mistake. Barney Northrop had rented one of the apartments to the wrong person. Okay, chapter 2, Ghosts or Worse. On September 1st, the chosen ones, and the mistake, moved in. A wire fence had been erected along the north side of the building. On it, a sign warned, "No trespassing, property of the Westing estate." The newly paved driveway curved sharply and doubled back on itself, then breached the city-county line. Sunset Towers stood at the far edge of town. On September 2nd, Shin Hoo's Restaurant, specializing in authentic Chinese cuisine, held its grand opening. Only 3 people came. It was indeed an exclusive neighborhood. Too exclusive for Mr. Hoo. However, the less expensive coffee shop that opened on the parking lot was kept busy serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner to tenants ordering up and to workers from nearby Westingtown. Sunset Towers was a quiet, well-run building, and except for the grumbling Mr. Hoo and the people who lived there seemed content. Neighbor greeted neighbor with good morning or good evening or a friendly smile and grappled with small problems behind closed doors. The big problems were yet to come. Notice our second vocabulary word there, grappled, that they grappled with small problems. Think about what that means. that they dealt with small problems, that they thought about, that they handled it behind closed doors. Now it was the end of October. A cold, raw wind whipped dead leaves about the ankles of the 4 people grouped in the Sunset Towers driveway, but not one of them shivered, not yet. The stocky, broad-shouldered man in the doorman's uniform, standing with feet spread, fists on hips, was Sandy McSouthers. The 2 slim, trim high school seniors shielding their eyes against the stinging chill were Theo Theodorakis and Doug Hu. The small, wiry man pointing to the house on the hill was Otis Amber, the 62-year-old delivery boy. They faced north, gaping like statues cast in the moment of discovery, until Turtle Wexler, her kite tail of a braid flying behind her, raced her bicycle into the driveway. Look, there's smoke! There's smoke coming from the chimney of the Westing house. The others had seen it. What did she think they were looking at anyway? Turtle leaned on the handlebars, panting for breath. Sunset Towers was near excellent schools, as Barney Northrup had promised, but the junior high was 4 miles away. Do you think the old man Westing's up there? Nah, Otis Amber, the old delivery boy answered. Nobody's seen him for years. Supposed to be living on a private island in the South Seas, he is, but most folks say he's dead. Long gone dead. They say his corpse is still up there in that big old house. They say his body is sprawled out on a fancy oriental rug, and his flesh is rotting off those mean bones, and maggots are creeping in his eye sockets and crawling out his nose holes. The delivery boy added a high-pitched hee to the gruesome details. Now someone shivered. It was Turtle. Serves him right, Sandy said. At other times, a cheery fellow, the doorman often complained bitterly about having been fired from his job of 20 years in the Westing paper mill. But somebody must be up there, somebody alive, that is. He pushed back the gold-braided cap and squinted at the house through his steel-framed glasses, as if expecting the curling smoke to write the answer in the autumn air. Maybe it's those kids again. No, it couldn't be. What kids? The 3 kids wanted to know. Why, those 2 unfortunate fellows from Westingtown. What unfortunate fellows? The 3 heads twisted from the doorman to the delivery boy. Doug Hu ducked Turtle's whizzing braid. Touch her precious pigtail even by accident and she'll kick you in the shins, that brat. He couldn't chance an injury to his legs, not with the big meat coming up. The track star began to jog in place. Horrible. It was horrible, Otis Amber said with a shudder that sent the loose straps of his leather aviator's helmet swinging about his long, thin face. Come to think of it, it happened exactly 1 year ago tonight, on Halloween. What happened? Theo asked impatiently. He was late for work in the coffee shop. Tell them, Otis, Sandy urged. The delivery boy stroked the gray stubble on his pointed chin. Seems it all started with a bet. Somebody bet them $1 they couldn't stay in that spooky house 5 minutes. 1 measly buck. The poor kids hardly got through those French doors on this side of the Westing house when they came tearing out like they was being chased by a ghost. Chased by a ghost? Or worse. Or worse? Turtle forgot her throbbing toothache. Theo Theodorakis and Doug Hu, older and more worldly-wise, exchanged winks but stayed to hear the rest of the story. One fella ran out crazy-like, screaming his head off. He never stopped screaming till he hit the rocks at the bottom of the cliff. The other fella hasn't said but 2 words since. Something about purple? Sandy helped him out. Purple waves. Otis Amber nodded sadly. Yep, that poor fella just sits in the state asylum saying purple waves, over and over again, and his scared eyes keep staring at his hands. You see, when he came running out of the Westing house, his hands were dripping with warm red blood. Now all 3 shivered. Poor kid, the doorman said, all that pain and suffering for $1 bet. Make it $2 for each minute I stay in there, and you're on, Turtle said. Someone was spying on the group in the driveway. From the front window of apartment 2D, 15-year-old Chris Theodorakis watched his brother Theo shake hands. It must be a bet with the skinny, one pigtailed girl, and rushed into the lobby. The family coffee shop would be busy now. Okay, so I want to stop there for a second. Note that the Theodorakis family lives in 2D and that they own the coffee shop. His brother should have been working the counter half an hour ago. Chris checked the wall clock. 2 more hours before Theo would bring up his dinner. Then he would tell him about the limper. Earlier that afternoon, Chris had followed the flight of a purple martin across the field of brambles, through the oaks, up to the red maple on the hill. The bird flew off, but something else caught his eye. Someone, he could not tell if the person was a man or a woman, came out of the shadows on the lawn, unlocked the French doors, and disappeared into the Westinghouse. Someone with a limp. Minutes later, smoke began to rise from the chimney. Once again, Chris turned toward the side window and scanned the house on the cliff. The French doors were closed. Heavy drapes hung full against the 17 windows he had counted so many times. They didn't need drapes on the special glass windows here in Sunset Towers. He could see out, but nobody could see in. Then why did he sometimes feel that someone was watching him? Who could be watching him? God. If God was watching, then why was he like this? The binoculars fell into the boy's lap. His head jerked, his body coiled, lashed by violent spasms. Relax, Theo will come soon. Relax, soon. The geese will be flying south in a V Canada goose. Relax, relax, and watch the wind tangle the smoke and blow it toward Westingtown. Okay, we're going to stop there. We will continue reading again tomorrow for chapters 3 and 4. What I'd like to bring you back to is trying to continue to work on this, fill out as much as you can. We will get more about the characters tomorrow when we read chapter 3. And then I believe that we can fill out some of the setting piece as well, right? We know where we're located. We're locating at the the Sunset Towers and the Westing Mansion or house. The time, it talked about the season changing. What season are we in right now? What kind of mood is that setting? So how is that changing the way that the vibe is feeling as far as the story? And what's the importance of this apartment? So if you remember, I stopped reading to say something that was pretty unusual about the tenants and how the apartment building got filled. I think that we need to write that there. Okay, it's already pretty exciting. I don't know if you're hooked. I feel like I'm already hooked. I'm looking forward to reading with you guys again tomorrow. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.